ladies and gentlemen, you've heard from a business consultant, you've heard from an auditor, you've also heard from somebody who helps set up businesses in the UAE, telling you what you can do. But it's now time for us to get a perspective from a legal consultant, somebody who's engaged on a daily basis in legalities, in law, in rules and regulations. It's time for us to bring up on screen in a couple of moments Mr. Abel Sunil George. Now, Mr. Abel Sunil George is a Bachelor of Law from Kerala Law Academy. He also holds a PGD in Maritime Law from the University of Southampton. He is currently contributing as an associate legal consultant with the law firm Chancery Chambers Legal Consultants, and he mainly assists clients on commercial litigation and arbitration front. His works has also included legal restructuring and various agreement drafting and reviewing. He has provided services to many corporate clients here in the UAE, and one of his amazing achievements is that he's been credited for having drafted the basic legislations for the American University of Research Technology and Innovations in the Free Zone of Sharjah. Now, Mr. Abel and me, when we were having this conversation a couple of months ago, both of us came up with this idea of how valuable it would have been to come out and reach out to all of you and share what's happening in the world today and what you could do. So this webinar, Navigating Crisis, is, I would say, very, very prominently one of Abel's ideas. So I thank Abel. Let's bring Abel up on screen. Yeah. And I thank Abel in a very, very special way for coming up with this concept, coming up with this idea, and sharing time with us. Abel, welcome to the webinar. Welcome to Navigating Crisis. I'm going to leave the screen to you now, buddy. Do take over and share your views.
Yeah, hi, Iral. Many thanks for your wonderful words and for your kind words. First of all, Ramadan Kareem to all. I believe that everyone is safe at their home with their beloved ones. Anyway, once again, I'm heading to the main topic of my discussion, which is contractual obligations vis-a-vis pandemic. To speak about my topic, I would say it is actually an extended edge of what Ms. Rupa said, or to what Mr. Ravi said. That is on the liability part of it. How you can manage the crisis, or how to manage the crisis in a legal way. That's what exactly this topic, this presentation is going to deal with. You might probably have an idea where I'm exactly sailing into. So, and that might be an arena where you might be quite familiar by the time. So, what I'm going to tell you is how to devise it and how to use it in a right way. Before heading into the main one, or before delving into the main presentation, I would like to shoot a question for which I would like to have your question for your feedbacks. Mr. Rural, can you just read out this question and get the feedback, please?
Yes, sure. I will do that right now. And Mr. Abel George, do go into full slideshow mode so that everybody can see your slides very clearly. So here's the quick question. Have you asked for a waiver in the rental amount for your office space due to the current pandemic? I remember Rupa spoke about this in the first presentation also she did, and it's something that I have maybe not done properly, but I need to look at. But we need to know from you guys, all your audience, all the audience who's sitting here, company owners, business owners, or decision makers who work with your company owners, accountants, if you're influential in your organization, we want to know from you, have you asked for a waiver in rental amount for your office space due to the current pandemic? Is yes, I have, or no, I haven't. So let's see as many of you vote as possible. Let's go. And we can see a lot of you coming in with your responses. And just about now, let's close that poll and share the answers with Abel. So right now, the answer, as what's seen on the screen, Mr. Abel, is that 68% of our attendees have actually gone back and have tried to renegotiate for a waiver in rental amount, and 32% have not yet done that. 32% not done, 68% have done. Over to you, sir.
That's wonderful. Thank you for your feedbacks. Now, taking the very simple contract, that is the lease contract or the tenancy contract, as a reference point, we are going to discuss what are all the other possible contracts that a business owner might enter into. That is, first one, the contracts which you may enter on for the basic resources, just like the lease contract or the expenses that you incur for the basic necessities, say for your utilities. Second one, the employee salary. Third one, other payment obligations to any third party. The basic factor to consider with all the 3 points is that it all includes a contractual obligations. So all throughout this presentation, we are going into the metrics of 2 basic questions. One is how you are going to ask for a waiver of your contractual obligations, or how you are going to amend a contractual obligation legally. Second is, what is the implication if you amend or if you ask for a waiver of your contractual obligation? On analyzing these questions, I would like to before delving into the details, I would like to throw some light on the basics. That is, what is a contract? A contract is nothing but an agreement that is enforceable by law. That means a contract involves an element of legality so that it becomes enforceable. Second one, on the relevance of contractual obligation. Contract does have a binding effect, hence the contracting parties will have an enforceable right, which I mentioned to earlier. That means if the agreement is for an illegal purpose, say I am entering into an agreement with the other party to hurt a third party, that is not enforceable, or you cannot enforce that right before the court of law for any default by the other party. Second one, the most important point right during this time with most of the companies is that there is a requirement for legal due diligence so that you can determine what is exactly the liabilities that you can incur over a contract, because it determines the course of business, or it determines to help you what is the crisis management plan or what is the action plan that should adopt during a crisis situation. Now, discussing on the effects of non-compliance of a contractual obligation, I would like to highlight on few bullet points. First and the foremost and the most important impact of a non-compliance of a contractual obligation is the material breach or the fundamental breach that leads to a termination of a contract. To relate this to a very actual scenario, I would like to mention one of the recent cases which I recently dealt with, where one of the parties, our client, was basically a tenant with the premises, and she leased out that space for conducting for running a business, and she leased it for a 1 year span, and she paid the rent for 3 months, and for the balance 9 months she didn't pay the rent. Finally, what happened was that the landlord sued her for the balance amount of rent of 9 months, which was close to $1 million. And upon discovery, or upon discussion with the client, we understood that she was not being given the possession of the premises. That means the very own key of that premises was not with her, it was with the landlord. So ultimately what happened was that the tenancy contract was being executed and she paid the rent for 3 months, but she was not given the premises to operate her business. So the defense that we took before the court was that it amounts to a fundamental breach from the very landlord, that he didn't give the premises, the possession of the premises, which hindered her from conducting the business. So the material breach or the fundamental breach is often something that we need to decide on depending upon the contractual obligations and the kind of transaction. Now, another impact of the fundamental breach is that often when a fundamental breach is being conducted and when the contract stands terminated, the contracting parties are put back to the situation where they were in before the contract was entered into. That means the pre-contractual position. So the net result is that the other party can ask the defaulting party to pay back whatever amount he already paid as consideration or as a remuneration for the performance of a specific contractual obligation. So this is one area where you can incur a liability under a contract. Second one is rescission of a contract is executed due to duress, coercion, or misrepresentation. To give you a very simple example, you are taking it again a space for lease, saying that it is for residential purpose, and you are using the very on premises for a commercial purpose, that amounts to a misrepresentation and you can be sued, and there incurs another liability, because the rent amount can vary depending upon the kind of use and depending upon what sort of the premises it is. These are all examples from the reference point of a lease contract. Third one is that the other party can ask the defaulting party for a specific performance. That means if an obligation within the contract is not something very material, that it doesn't amount to be a fundamental breach, the other party can ask the defaulting party to specifically perform it. It can be through a notice, or it can be even through a legal suit also. The third last one is liquidated damages or compensation. That means if the defaulting party committed a breach that materially affected the business of the other party, he can ask for a compensation from the other party. That can be actually on the basis of how far it has affected him and to what extent. So basically the element with that is that it must be quantified always. Second last one is penal clauses. These clauses are usually included in contracts which is having as time of in contracts where the time is of essence. Say for example, a sale purchase agreement where the developer agreed to build a villa within a specific period of time, and if the villa is not being built within the set period, yes, you can ensue him for with a penalty clause and for the consideration that you paid for the extended time or the time he takes out of that agreed time. And the last one, which I would say is the most important one, is loss of reputation. If a contractual obligation is not being obliged, one big impact is that you will have a loss of reputation that can even affect your course of business on a long run. Now, keeping all these factors into consideration, we will perceive it on the backdrop of COVID-19. I'm sure that you might have already familiar with the terms which I have highlighted here, that is force majeure and doctrine of frustration. Force majeure means greater force or vis major, which it is actually used in the common law system, that is the English law system, and also used in civil law system like that of UAE and France and China. This was actually supposed to have, this is believed to be origin from the Napoleonic Code, and this is even a concept that is being enshrined in various international conventions, just like the CISG, International Sale of Goods, and in UNIDROIT. Coming on to doctrine of frustration, the very meaning is that the very on purpose of the contract becomes impossible to perform due to an impossibility factor, or because that the obligation within that contract becomes illegal. The doctrine of frustration is actually first mentioned in the case of Taylor versus Caldwell, where the tenant leased the premises for conducting a concert, and later on, after execution of the tenancy contract, a fire happened to occur in the premises, and the contract become frustrated. This is where the doctrine of frustration was first mentioned. Now, in detail discussing on what are the factors that you can invoke or that are to be satisfied while invoking a force majeure clause. First one is impossibility or hardship in performance. When mentioning to this, I would like to mention to one recent case again, which I recently dealt with, where one of our clients from Greece, they opened up a retail outlet in a mall operated by Majid Al Futtaim. And after opening the retail, right after 3 months, the lockdown was declared. So they approached us asking for a legal opinion whether we can terminate the contract on account that it is hard to perform or it's hard to get business during these times. So the real question there is it impossible to perform the contractual obligation, or is it hard to perform your obligation? Second one is foreseeability. A very important case that was being recently cited by the Supreme Court or the Cassation Court in UAE was that a supplier was being engaged to supply airlog units, 35 airlog units to Dubai Airport Dubai Airport Authority. And ultimately what happened was that he supplied 5 airlog units, and due to the force majeure situation, the rest he said, I cannot supply. The force majeure reason for the force majeure situation was that the supplier who was enlisted with the Dubai Airport Authority was removed from the panel of suppliers. This was the reason for invoking the force majeure clause. So the court held that that cannot be held as a real reason, because removing from a panel list is something that can happen at any time if you don't satisfy with certain conditions that is being enlisted by the authority. So the foreseeability element should be actually determined based on the facts or based on the circumstance of the case, based on the circumstance at the time of entering into the contract. Third condition is uncontrollable. That means the supervening event which occurred should not be within the control of the contracting parties. That can even include a change of law. Last one is governing law and the jurisdiction, where it is being applied, where this concept is being applied. That is, whether it is a common law jurisdiction or is it a civil law jurisdiction. To briefly mention, this clause is even being included in the civil transaction law of UAE, which is enshrined in Article 273 of the civil transaction law. Before getting into depth, I would like to shoot a question on this, where I asked Mr. Errol to take out this question as a poll question, please.
Yeah, I'm jumping in right now, Mr. Abel George. Let's have the question on the screens. Can an unforeseen event or a force majeure event completely exclude a defaulting party from a contractual liability? Now, this is one thing that could be on everybody's mind. So right now we need to know from you guys, what do you think? Either you can select a yes or a no. It's a poll question. We want to know from you, what do you think? Let's try and clarify those doubts. Everybody get on, reach out to your keypad, reach out to your phones, reach out to your smartphones, share with us your answer. What do you think? Can an unforeseen event or a force majeure event completely exclude a defaulting party from a contractual liability? You can either select a yes or you can select a no. It's a very, very simple question, and we want to know, what do you think? Either it's a yes or a no. Everybody, wherever you are, reach out and share with us what you think. And we've got a lot of you voting in. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for engaging, sharing with us your comments from wherever you are. Also, of course, you can keep those questions coming in if you have them, because at the end of the webinar, we're going to do a panel discussion. Let's close that poll. Let's share that answer with Mr. Abel. Mr. Abel, 53% of our audience believes that yes, you can, and 47% say no. 53 yes, 47% no. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your wonderful feedbacks. Well, I would like to say that there is no straitjacket formula actually for this very clause, because it is something that is strictly depending upon the facts or the circumstances of your case. Sorry that my presentation is getting stuck.
You want to just exit and just keep an escape button and try again? Hit the escape on your laptop.
My apologies, due to some technical reasons, in fact, my keypad is stuck, I believe. Yeah.
There you go. It's come back. It's come back. Yeah, it's moving. Super.
So the real answer is that there is no straitjacket formula for the force majeure clause, because the force majeure is actually a clause that you can invoke for many reasons. There is even a notion that a force majeure clause can only be invoked to terminate a contract. That is not the real case. A force majeure clause can be invoked for a delayed performance, for a partial performance, and even for terminating a contract. In fact, the delayed performance and partial performance is already mentioned in Article 273, which I mentioned before, where the only condition is that the other party should be duly notified. Now, one particular perspective which we should look at is that when invoking a force majeure clause for terminating a contract, the most important question to be dealt is, have we explored any other alternative options? On that perspective, I'd like to mention the famous case of Sadi Glow and Company versus Noblithol GmbH. This case is reported in the English court, and the facts of the case is very interesting. That is, one of the parties agreed to supply Sudanese peanuts to a company in Hamburg, and they entered into contract, a CIF contract, but later on course, it was understood that the navigation route of the vessel through which they are going to ship the peanuts is not through Suez Canal, because the Suez Canal was closed due to temporarily for some reasons, and they will take a different navigation route, that is through the Cape of Good Hope. Now, the net result, what the seller understood was that it will incur more cost to them because of the fuel consumption reasons, and for the demurrage reasons, it will incur more cost to the seller. And finally, what happened was that the seller restrained to ship the peanuts, mentioning it as a frustration, that the contract remains frustrated, that it is unable to perform the contractual obligation. But the court held that we cannot say that the very on purpose of the contract is frustrated, because there is always an alternative option to supply the goods. The only reason is that it will incur more cost to the supplier, more cost to the party who is supposed to perform the contractual obligation. So before invoking a force majeure clause for terminating a contract, the foremost condition that we should think is whether there is any alternative options. Have we explored any alternative options? And secondly, if we have any alternative options, does it incur more cost to us? Now, what if it incurs more cost to us? First and the foremost thing that should come to us is that we can mitigate the contractual liability in case it is incurring more cost to us. That is even supported in Article 249 of the Civil Transactions Law, where the court has the power to mitigate the liability incurring out of a contract if the expense or if the performance is going to have a more of a liability on the obliger for performing his specific contractual obligation. Getting on to the last slide, and rather the most important one, I would like to discuss on what are the alternative solutions to a force majeure clause or to a doctrine of frustration. First and the foremost one is renegotiate the terms of the contract to make it commercially viable. I think this point was already mentioned by my co-speaker, Ms. Rupa, and Mr. Ravi, that you can ask for a waiver with your landlords or with your suppliers. Another impact or another benefit that I would say for a contract which was entered into in 2019, having a span of 2 years, and it was supposed to end in 2021. Right after the 2020, right after lifting of the lockdown, you might find it difficult to get back your business back on pace, and you will really find it difficult to comply with such contractual obligation. So what is the real goal? The real and the only goal is renegotiate your contract. Moreover, as mentioned by me in the prior circumstances, like if there is any alternative options, that should be the next reason. If we have any alternative means to perform the obligation, we should rely on that. But while exploring the alternative options, as I mentioned, to the cost part that you may incur, say suppose I agreed to supply certain goods to a third person for 10 million, and my cost for supplying the goods which are worth 10 million is actually the cost that I'm incurring is 3 million. But on course, I realized that it will incur more cost to me, and the cost element have increased from 3 million to 5 million. So my profit margin have reduced. What is the possible go? The possible go is that we should renegotiate the term, and we should get into an agreement, and we should get the confirmation from the other party that it is okay for them to proceed with such a contract, even if the cost have incurred, and that they are ready to they are ready to pay back us, even if our cost goes high. So while considering an alternative option, the cost element that you consider, or the cost that you can incur, should always be a matter of concern, and you should ensure that that is being confirmed and agreed by the other party, because otherwise you are incurring more cost and your profit margin is reducing. There are high chances that if you go for a suit to the other party asking to pay him back all the costs that you incurred, he can easily deny it because that was never being agreed by him. So when you're looking at the alternative options, just ensure on these aspects. Third one is notify the other party in advance about the supervening event and explain how it affects your performance obligation. This is a very big relevance. On this aspect, I would like to quote to a very important case that was being recently cited in the Bombay High Court, uh, exactly speaking on April 8th last month, wherein one of the parties applied for an interim relief for staying the encashment, or to put an order on the encashment of the letter of credit, wherein one of the parties supplied steels and he ordered not to release the payment under the letter of credit. The court held that it is not possible because supply of steel comes under essential service, and hence the lockdown of due to COVID-19 doesn't affect their business volume. So it is not possible to stay the release, or for the payment obligation is not being affected due to the lockdown. So the real factor that when we are notifying the other parties, that we should be able to prove that what is the real ring of the force majeure event and what is its impact on your contractual obligation. Does it affect your contractual obligation, in what manner and to what extent? So that can actually get you a better edge when you negotiate with the other party for a waiver or for an amendment in your contractual obligation. Third last one is possibility for a mutual termination of a contract. If you understand that it is no way possible to perform your contractual obligation, one best go is for a mutual termination. You need to terminate, you need to notify the other party that you cannot comply with the contractual obligation, and he should also agree with. So this can reduces the chance of a litigation. Second last one is material adverse changes. When you analyze each contract or each kind of transaction, you should actually reiterate and analyze, or radically understand what is the real purpose of each clause. Say, for example, material adverse change or material adverse event or effect. These are terminologies which are being usually used in a merger and acquisition contract. That means if there is a material change of circumstance before the completion of the contract, you can one of the party who is acquiring the shares with the other party can restrain himself from complying with the contractual obligations, because due to the change of events or due to the change of circumstances, it has the value of the other party has gone down. So such clauses shall be made use. And the last one is penalty clause. Often it's always better to pay off the penalties rather than paying off huge liquidated damages. Say, for example, a tenant is unable to pay off his rent and he invoked the force majeure clause. Rather than the landlord suing you for the due amount of rent, it is always better that you pay off the penalty, if any, and get rid of the place. So the clauses within a contract, and depending upon the type of transaction, you can make use of these clauses. And I think that's all with my the gist of my presentations. If you have any queries, please feel free to contact me. And thank you, and best wishes to all the attendees for your time. And I believe this will benefit you. Thank you. You may feel free to contact me on any of these through any of these means. Thank you. Thank you again, Mr. Bharat.
Mr. Abel, that was brilliant. I mean, you shared so many insights, especially the legal aspects, the law, and how it looks at it, and especially contractual applications. I mean, we sign contracts all the time. As a business owner, I sign contracts all the time. But you're right. It's in times of crisis like this that we need to go back and relook at those contracts and see if there's changes we can be made or if you can renegotiate. So thank you so much. Really, really valuable sharing. Really valuable information shared.